Okay, welcome. We have too much light in the background. Maybe better. We're here for 6 Names of Esther, Purim in the Persian Empire. And during Second Temple span, correcting the history books. Okay, so I'd like to see if I can add the link for just updated on ResearchGate, 6 Names of Esther. Everybody probably knows Esther and Hadassah, means myrtle, is in the Megillah Esther, book scroll of Esther. So what we have at Torah chronology, Chazal-based alignment of Torah testimony and ancient civilization. We find that the current consensus, popular, what they normally teach, which doesn't add up based on Chazal very well, is based on an error by loss of information. So by going back to Chazal, we can reconstruct and align with the factual parts of the historic record and reconcile why it's the 52 year and not 200 plus year span from the fall of Babel to Cyrus the Anointed in 33 Anamundi, 3389, and his year one, following 1 year by his uncle, senior uncle Darius the Mede, who turns out to also become his father-in-law in 3390, and his proclamation, his year one. Look at the book of Ezra. Everything we say is consistent within Tanakh scripture. And until Alexander the Macedonian, it's 52 years later, not 148 years more than that. The other 16 years of the 164-year dispute comes much later, after the Persian Empire, during Ptolemy II. Okay, so with that information, we're able to find 4 additional names in addition to Esther and Hadassah in the history books that are based on Esther. We also identify Mordechai and Daniel in the history books. Okay, so anyway, happy Hanukkah. It's still the 8th day. Last night we lit the 8th candle. Oh, so why are we talking about Esther and Purim now? This week, the Torah reading we're doing about Joseph, and Jacob, his father, Israel, going down to Egypt, sold into this week. We'll be reading about Vigash. Yehuda confronts the viceroy, who doesn't yet realizes Joseph. And then Jacob goes down, and the reunion, and we're there for 210 years once Jacob goes down. So the reason we're doing Esther is Rabbi Yossi Quadrat of Kankan magazine, historical. He brought down, we know Esther was queen on the first day of Teves, the 10th month, starting from Nisan, the Passover, spring month. And even though Hanukkah is 200 years after Purim, so starting once we started celebrating Hanukkah, normally Rosh Chodesh would fall on the seventh. This year it's on the seventh day. It could probably, be within a day, I'm imagining, but maybe it's so because Rosh Chodesh can be the 29th day or can be the 30th day. Sometimes we have a 2-day Rosh Chodesh, and then Tevet, that would mean that the last day of Kislev, the 9th month, is the first day of Rosh Chodesh, and the second day is the first day of Tevet. So if it's a 2-day Rosh Chodesh, it's always the second day of Rosh Chodesh. So this year, it was a 2-day Rosh Chodesh. I'm not sure if it always is or not. And it was a 30-day Kislev. But anyway, one Teves, when Esther was queened in the 7th year of Ahasuerus, she was queened in his year 7 on the first day of Teves. So that's why that's what brought up Queen Esther, and we want to. So even though Purim is Teves, Shabbat, Adar, it's not a leap year, so about 2.5 months away. We're going to talk a little bit about Queen Esther and her 6 names. Okay, so we have Torah Discovery Chronology, also known as Bible Chronology. Here we have Esther's father-in-law, Darius, the son of Histapes, in the Behistun inscription. That's the father of Ahasuerus. Now, Ahasuerus, both Darius, Ahasuerus, and the son of Esther and Ahasuerus, his grandson, have repetitions in the current inflated, Hellenized, corrupted consensus. And that's why they have an extra 148 years from mid-Cyrus until Alexander over Persia. So in Ezra, one of the keys, we teach in Perlman chronology, is the Darius the Persian of Ezra is not the son of Esther and Ahasuerus, Artaxerxes. Darius Artaxerxes, if you prefer. Darius, it's kind of like a title. But his grandfather, Darius, the son of Histapes, the Persian, is a little clue. And it works out much better with Chazal and works out much better with the Tanakh, the text. And what does that do? That means that instead of the 6 years of that we know about, from his year 2, when we resume construction, Darius the Persian year 2, is in 3396. So the 7th year after 3390, Cyrus proclamation, and not in 3408. So everybody holds that Ahasuerus 3407 is the last year of Ahasuerus. So 3408 would be his grandson Darius, Artaxerxes, the son of Esther and Ahasuerus. His year 2 would be 3408. So subtract 3408 minus 3396, and you have, I believe that's 12 years of FUD, extra years. That's going to cause a mistake in understanding this holy temple to, and what was going on during the book of Esther and during Ezra. Ezra, everybody agrees when he arrived. So that's not so much but Ezra does go back into, he doesn't arrive till Artaxerxes, the son of Esther and Hashverosh, the grandson of Darius, the great Darius, who has two repetitions, and has a repetition. So it's not just Darius I, the Great, it's also the repetition of Darius I. So don't get confused. Now, Purim is only, the consensus is only what they normally teach out of, based on the mistake of when Yemei Achashverosh began. Yemei Achashverosh are actually 21 years and not 14 years. They begin 7 years earlier than most people realize. So that's only off by 7 years. So Esther year 7 is not 3400, I should say. 3393 is the normal late start instead of 3387. So Esther's year 7 is 3393, not Ahasuerus year 1. So Ahasuerus year 7, 3393, which is the 4th year after, inclusive, so 3 years after the 3390, but including 3390 proclamation of Cyrus, 3390, 91, 92, 93 is the that's year 7 of Ahasuerus, whose first year is 3387 when he gets initial authority from being the eldest royal grandson of Cyrus through his mother Atoza, who was very powerful, and instead of her getting the power directly, she got it through her son, and young son Ahasuerus, who was only about, I forget if he was, I think 10 years old within a year, in 3387, when Sardes, King Croesus and Sardes fell to Cyrus, which was actually 4 years before Cyrus became king of kings of Babel, 1 year after the fall of Babel to Cyrus, and who was a king of kings, but also his uncle, senior uncle, he was very humble, Cyrus, and which is one of the reasons God liked him, I'm sure, and used him as his agent for to take down the Babylonian tyranny, and he had degraded, whatever Nebuchadnezzar, however arrogant he became, but he did some good things. He recognized Jeremiah is great, did some other things that were good. Not his son, but his grandson, not Nabonidus I, but Nabonidus II. Belshazzar became, spoiled and abusive. Okay, so now let's get into Esther. Okay, so Esther is queen in 30. On a Monday. Okay, I start, the traditional. This is 5,785 on a Monday. Start year 1 and day 6. I take a couple of notes. Birth of Abraham Ha'ivri in 1948. So birth of Isaac 100 years later in 2048. 400 years later is the Exodus at the end of the Old Kingdom, and cause and effect for the abrupt decline of 6th dynasty Egypt. So we're up to 2448, 500 years after the birth of Abraham. Then 480 years until King Solomon, year 4. This is a very good, this is from Legacy of Sinai. Rabbi Zechariah Fendel. Okay, so 480 years from the Exodus into King Solomon, year 4. Start construction of Holy Temple 1 on the Temple Mount of King David. Okay. Prepared to some degree. On Ha Moriah, I believe. Okay, Mount Moriah. Then 410 years, Holy Temple 1 until Nebuchadnezzar, year 19. Then back up 18 years to 3320 is year 2, Nebuchadnezzar, the initial occupation of Judea by Bavel. Then 18 years to the end of Holy Temple 1. So from 3320, Jeremiah's 70 years actually begin at 3320, and they end with Cyrus' proclamation in 3390 on a Monday. Again, beginning year 1 on day 6 with the formation of Adam and first Adam and Chava, genetic Eve, in full stature. We don't call it, normally we call it genetic Adam is actually Noah because it was a genetic bottleneck. So while there was more than one female on the ark line, the 3 daughters-in-law of Noah and Naamah, his wife. So therefore, genetic Adam lived 10 generations and was born 1,056 years after genetic Eve. So genetic Eve was married to first Adam. Okay, so we're up to 3390, Cyrus proclamation, and this is several years after the fall of Sardis, which is in modern Turkey, to Lydia. The kingdom of Lydia had fallen to Cyrus. And Cyrus had set out with, I think, 30,000 troops to aid his uncle, Darius the Mede. His father was Ahasuerus the Mede of the book of Daniel mentions Ahasuerus. So, depending what language you're talking, there are a few different names for what you might call him. I highly recommend Xenophon, Cyropaedia, if you want about the life of Cyrus. It's very good. And then Anabasis will come into play later that actually covers during Ahasuerus. Yeah, so we have a lot on that in Torah chronology. And Ctesias, where he fits in and where Esther fits in with him, and Atoza about Cyrus. And Atoza also has a repetition, as do many during that time. Is Herodotus, and they were writing things down. They were getting different perspectives of different people, and sometimes they didn't realize they were different perspectives of the same event, and they thought they're 2 events, so they try to fit everything in. So you end up with a lot of fudge if you don't know Torah chronology, and even if you know Torah chronology, you still have to know Perlman, how we reconcile the Persian span, how it fits, and also back with the covenant between the pots, and even during creation week. So we explain how the science, the vastly higher probability science, not only align fully can and does align with Torah testimony and narrative and testimony and chronology, but actually attests to it and falsifies everything that all the current consensus that contradicts it. Like the 13.8 billion age of the universe, the Big Bang with a capital T, it's been properly falsified in Volume 2, Perlman Torah chronology. Okay. still, it's a hyperdense thought, yes. At the end of day 4, the universe attained gravitational bound equilibrium 5,785 years ago, once you understand the Titus chronology. That's Permian chronology. Okay, so let's see if we can get to the... you can just look up now on ResearchGate, the 6 Names of Esther, 4 pages. And look at the table of contents here. What I'll try to do is, I'm just going to post a link on the 5 names of Esther, 6 names of Esther, including Esther. But let me just give you a minute here, page 214. Oh, so it's interesting. Well, I find it interesting. One of those names is Sisigambis. Now, who's Sisigambis? When Alexander, like I said, 52 years after Cyrus' proclamation of 3390, so up to 3442, which is only 4 years after year 32 of Artaxerxes, the son of Ahasuerus and Esther. So 2 years after that, he's at a place called Issus. He has a big victory, and the son of Sisigambis, who, you can call him Darius, Artaxerxes, then Ahasuerus and Esther. He, a lot of times, the kings would bring their families with them and, watch the battle from a safe distance. So he fled, and Sisigambis is taken, and Sisigambis' daughter and granddaughter by Alexander, who, marries, I think, one, then later the other. So, so Esther, it's not that much longer. It's only Esther, okay. It is from when Esther is queened in 3393 until 3444 is 51 years. So let's say Esther was, she may have been 12, she may have been 20, let's say she was 15 when she was taken. Okay, so maybe a year after that, but let's say 15. Ahasuerus was 13, I think, when he married Vashti. And Vashti, she could have been 12, or she could have been older. It's not clear. I think probably 12. She seemed to. Okay. So anyway, how old is Esther? If she was, let's say 16, when she was queened in 3393. So subtract 16 from 3393. I think we're at 3877. 3877 to 3444. So it's 44 plus 23, mid 60s, if I'm, off the top of my head. Esther's mid 60s in at Issus when she's taken with her daughter by Alexander, and she becomes a mother figure to Alexander. There's a good chance that when they say Myrtle and they say it's the birth mother of Alexander, it's probably not. Sisigambis, Esther became a mother figure to Alexander. So they probably conflate Myrtle, who's probably based on Hadassah, which means Myrtle, and for the name of Alexander's birth mother. And Sisigambis became like a mother figure to Alexander, and actually became his mother-in-law, literally, not long after Alexander captures the royal family, and obviously wants to, by marriage to the queen mother, He wants to, show he's a legitimate ruler of the Persian Empire that at that time, included Egypt up to India, through Turkey. I think Macedonia at some point had been subservient to that. I think during the Greco-Persian Wars, I think a lot of the Greeks didn't like the Macedonians because the Macedonians made a treaty with the Persians, which, dividing and conquering is pretty standard for still is prevalent. Okay. So here are the names, 6 names of Esther. Hadassah, Fidine, probably pronouncing it wrong, Fadine. Amestris. Amestris is very close to Esther. Statera, Esther, also etymology of Esther, and Sisigambis, like I just mentioned. He was taken by Alexander at Issus. All right, and then here we have when did Esther pass on? And why did she pass on? So she passed on shortly on hearing the news Alexander was dead. She kind of foresaw what was going to happen, without her once the Greek kingdom divided and split. Okay, now I also posted in that article Perelman versus Ptolemy canon, and Perelman's Chazal based alt on the Second Temple span to show the extra 148 years of fudge, who the repetitions are of who. The 3 major repetitions for Darius, then Hystapes, the repetition for his son Xerxes 1, and the repetition for his son Artaxerxes 1. So Darius 2, Artaxerxes 2, and maybe was it Darius 3, are all repetitions of those 3. Okay. Yes, also a lot of unaccounted for overlap. The like I said, Yemei Achashverosh begins in 3387 when Cyrus starts holding court in Sardis and entertains the Athens delegation. So Cyrus year 1 as King of Kings of Media, it's already year 4 of Yemei Achashverosh, time of Achashverosh. Vashti's already come and go, already gone by then. And 3393, the last year for Cyrus, is probably within months after the passing of Cyrus, is Esther is queened in 1 Teves. So if Cyrus passed on in the summer or fall, then he passed on before Esther was queened. Okay. Good. All right. So another thing, we show is, Esther's role in helping expose false Smyrdes, thanks to Mordechai, who we identify as Otanes, the judge, on the Behistun inscription. And it's also in Ctesias, I believe, and in Herodotus. It talks about the group of 7 that saves Persia from Philip Smyrdes. Now it turns out Big Son and Zeresh conspiracy exposed by Mordechai relates to that. This is 3396. This is Yemei Achashverosh year 10. So this is shortly after. This is like, I guess, 2 years after Mordechai exposes, rounded, after Mordechai exposes the false Smyrdes conspiracy. So it's actually Mordechai Otain who initiates the group of 7, recruits Darius, the son of Histapes, probably right around just after maybe Cambyses dies on his return. I believe he died in Homa in Syria on the way back from Egypt, probably a couple years in Egypt. So they each get I think Mordechai gets 2 other people, Daniel, Megabuzzes, and one other person, and they each recruit 1 person. So you end up with 6 plus Darius, then Histapes at 7, group of 7, and save Persia from false Smyrdes, who is about to kill Xerxes, the eldest and grandson of Cyrus. So most people don't realize that. Okay, so, and then obviously caused a lot of people in the Persia, between what Daniel had done prior and now with Esther and Mordechai, a lot of people in the Persian Empire, Yachadim, they became monotheists and recognized God of Abraham. They call him, I think, God of heaven. Even in the Chumash of Moses, it mentions at least once Ke Hashemayim, God of Hashem of heaven, as to describe God of Abraham, the one designer, creator of the universe, a common father, etc. So, he wants us to treat each other with respect. Okay, so later on, Esther is going to play a prominent role in younger Cyrus. Cyrus the Younger, his effort to take the throne from his older brother, and who turns out to be Ahasuerus, we find. Not long after the passing of Darius, I think around this is Darius the Great year 2. So actually his reign was probably 6 years. He's probably 36 when he passed on, around 3400. So within a couple of years of that, Cyrus the Younger is back with a large army, including, I think, 10,000 Greeks, of which Xenophon led 6,000 back to Greece. Esther played a big part in that. And then that ended up leading to efforts by Greece to, take eventually, Philip wasn't even the first, and then Alexander, the one who was successful in as foretold by Daniel. Then 100 years later is Ptolemy II, who's good person, got the 72 sages together. Back then, there was a lot of advances in science. Some even figured out that the solar system must, revolves, around the sun. Earth goes around the sun, and then it was, I guess, forgotten. So, what they forgot, was just starting to figure out again a lot of things in the past, century or two, and and a lot of what we know, they were closer to the truth back then than we are now. I think in 1920, they were closer to the actual size of the universe. The consensus is now, it turns out that it's a little bit under 1 billion light years radius, not 46.5 billion light year radius to the visible universe. And also it turns out the entire universe approximates the visible universe. Okay. So the Septuagint, 72 sages, that was around 3,500 on a Monday. And then about 16 years before or 15 or 16 years before Ptolemy II passes on, and again, at the start of Ptolemy II, there's 16 years of fudge there. That's why most people say 3515, but it's really 3,500, but 3499.
Dina.
Okay. All right, so good job. Check out the links I post. Okay, hi, hon. Hold on. Okay, 1 second. Trying to figure out how to stop. Oh, yeah. Yeah, hi.